He used to wake up before the alarm most mornings, not because he wanted to, but because his mind never fully rested. Even in sleep, he was listening for small footsteps, listening for a call from the next room, listening for silence that lasted too long. The house was quiet when he got up, the kind of quiet that felt heavier than noise. He moved slowly, careful not to creak the floorboards. The coffee machine hummed softly as he leaned against the counter, rubbing his eyes. His reflection in the dark window looked older than he felt inside. Tired eyes, lines that had not been there a few years ago. He had not always lived like this. There was a time when mornings were shared, when laughter filled the kitchen, when plans were made without checking school schedules or babysitter availability. That life felt far away now, like a story he once read, but could no longer fully remember. Everything changed after the accident. He did not like to think about that day, but it followed him everywhere. In quiet rooms, in long drives, in moments when happiness tried to return but stopped at the door. From that moment on, his life became smaller and bigger at the same time. Smaller because his world narrowed to one person. Bigger because the responsibility felt endless. His child. She was the reason he got up every day. The reason he worked overtime. The reason he learned how to braid hair, cook meals he never thought about before, and sit through school meetings without feeling lost. He learned fast because he had to. There was no one else to share the load. People often called him strong. He never felt strong. He felt focused. There was a difference. After dropping her at school each morning, he went straight to work. Long hours, little rest. He kept his head down and did what needed to be done. His co-workers knew his story, but they rarely brought it up. Some offered sympathy at first. Others avoided the subject. Eventually, everyone moved on. Everyone except him. Evenings were predictable. Homework at the kitchen table. Dinner together. A quick cleanup. Then bedtime stories. He always let her choose the book, even when she picked the same one again and again. Her head rested against his arm as he read. Sometimes she fell asleep before the last page. Those moments were his reward. When the house finally went quiet again, that was when the loneliness hit the hardest. He did not go out much. He did not drink. He did not scroll dating apps late at night. The idea of dating felt strange, almost wrong, not because he did not miss adult company, but because he did not know how to fit it into his life. He worried about bringing someone new into his child's world. He worried about failing again. He worried about opening wounds that had barely healed. His friends thought differently. They had known him since before everything changed. They remembered the version of him who laughed easily, who stayed out late, who made plans without checking the time. To them, he looked like someone who had disappeared into responsibility and never come back. They met once a week when schedules allowed. Sometimes at a small cafe, sometimes at one of their homes. He usually arrived tired but tried not to show it. They joked. They teased him about being too serious. They told him he was still young. That life was not over. You need to get back out there. One of them said one night, leaning back in a chair, "You can't stay stuck forever." He smiled politely and changed the subject, like he always did. They did not understand that it was not about fear. It was about priority. His child came first. Always. Still, part of him wondered what it would feel like to sit across from someone who saw him as more than just a parent. Someone who asked how he was doing and waited for a real answer. That thought scared him more than he liked to admit. A few days later, his friends brought it up again. This time, they sounded excited. Too excited. They told him they knew someone. Someone perfect. They described her in vague terms, avoiding details. They insisted it was nothing serious. Just dinner. Just a way to get him out of the house for a night. He resisted at first. He listed reasons. His schedule. His child. His exhaustion. They countered every excuse with ease. They even offered to watch his child for the evening. That caught him off guard. "You deserve one night," one of them said. "Just one." He went quiet. That night, after his child was asleep, he sat alone on the couch with the lights off. The TV played quietly in the background, but he was not watching. He thought about how long it had been since he had done something for himself. He thought about how many times he had said no without really considering yes. The next morning, His friend sent him the details. A small restaurant. Early evening. Casual. He stared at the message longer than he needed to. He did not know it then, but this decision, this small, tired agreement, was the first crack in a wall he had built around his life. The day of the date arrived faster than he expected. He felt strange all afternoon, distracted, nervous in a way he had not felt since his first day as a parent. At home, he stood in front of his closet, unsure what to wear. Everything felt wrong, too formal, too careless, too much like someone he used to be. His child watched him from the doorway. "Are you going somewhere?" she asked. He hesitated. He had not planned to tell her much. He did not want to confuse her or make it a bigger thing than it was. "Just dinner," he said softly. "With who?" "A friend," he replied, choosing the word carefully. She studied him for a moment, then smiled. "You look nice," she said. Those simple words hit him harder than he expected. He swallowed and smiled back. After dropping her off with his friend, he sat in the car for a few minutes before driving away. His hands rested on the steering wheel, unmoving. Part of him wanted to turn around, to say it was a mistake, to return to what he knew. But another part of him, quiet but persistent, urged him forward. He drove through familiar streets, past places that held memories. The city looked the same, but he felt different moving through it, like a visitor in his own life. When he reached the restaurant, he parked across the street and took a deep breath. He did not know what to expect. He did not know that his friends had not taken this as seriously as they claimed. He did not know that this night would challenge everything he believed about himself. All he knew was that he was about to walk into a situation he could not control, and for the first time in a long while, that terrified him and quietly made him feel alive. He stepped inside the restaurant and immediately felt out of place. It was not loud or fancy, just warm and softly lit, with quiet music playing in the background. Couples sat close together, talking in low voices. A few families were scattered around, laughing gently over shared plates. It felt like a place where people came to relax, not to feel nervous. But he was nervous. He stood near the entrance for a moment, scanning the room. His friends had told him she would be sitting by the window. He spotted the table quickly. She was already there, hands folded around a glass of water, looking outside as if lost in thought. For a second, he considered turning around. Then she looked up. Their eyes met, and she smiled. Not a big, dramatic smile, just a simple one. The kind that felt easy. The kind that did not demand anything in return. He walked toward the table, his steps slower than usual. As he got closer, he noticed small details. She was dressed simply. No heavy makeup. No forced confidence. Just calm. "Hi," she said, standing slightly as he arrived. "Hi," he replied, feeling his voice come out quieter than he expected. They shook hands awkwardly, then laughed softly at the same time. That small moment broke some tension. They both sat down, unsure who should speak first. "I'm glad you came," she said. He nodded. "Me too, I think." She smiled again. "That's fair." A server came over, gave the menus, and left them to decide. He stared at the menu without really reading it. His mind was busy forming sentences and losing them before they reached his mouth. "So," she said gently, "how was your day?" It was such a normal question, but he paused, surprised by how long it had been since someone outside of work or family had asked him that. "It was busy," he said. "Most of my days are." She nodded, like she understood exactly what he meant. They ordered simple meals. Nothing complicated. As the server walked away, silence settled between them again. Not uncomfortable, just quiet. The kind of silence that waits to see who you really are. He cleared his throat. "I should probably say this up front," he began. "I'm not very good at dating." She laughed softly. "That makes two of us." That was when he relaxed a little. They started with small things. Work, the neighborhood, favorite foods. She listened more than she spoke, but when she did speak, her words felt thoughtful, not rushed, not rehearsed. Eventually, she asked about his child. The way she asked made him pause. It was not a quick question. It was careful, respectful, like she knew it mattered. He talked about mornings at home, about school lunches and bedtime stories, about learning things the hard way. He tried not to ramble, but once he started, it felt good to let it out. She did not interrupt. She did not check her phone. She looked at him like every word mattered. "You really love being a parent," she said. He smiled without thinking. "It's the best thing in my life." He did not notice his friends sitting across the room, pretending not to watch. They were leaning in, whispering, waiting for the awkward moment they were sure would come. They had expected stiff answers, forced smiles, maybe an early exit. Instead, they saw him laugh. The food arrived, and the conversation kept going. She shared parts of her own story. Not all of it, just enough. Enough to show she understood struggle. Enough to show she was not here for entertainment. There was a moment when he caught himself enjoying the present instead of worrying about the future. That scared him a little. Enjoyment felt dangerous, like something that could be taken away. Halfway through the meal, she hesitated, then spoke carefully. "I want to be honest," she said. He felt his stomach tighten. "Okay." She took a breath. This setup, it wasn't completely serious. At least not at first. He frowned slightly, confused. "One of your friends mentioned it was meant to be light. Maybe even a joke," she continued. "I didn't realize how much until later." He felt heat rise in his chest. Embarrassment, disappointment, a familiar urge to shut down. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I still came because I was curious. And because I thought maybe you deserved someone who showed up honestly, even if the situation wasn't." He looked at her, really looked at her. Her expression was open, nervous, real. "So you knew?" he asked. She nodded. "Before tonight, but not everything." He leaned back slightly, letting the words settle. He thought about turning the night into a joke himself, about brushing it off, about laughing it away. Instead, he did something unexpected. "Thank you for telling me," he said. She looked relieved. "I almost didn't come," he added. "Not because of fear, because I didn't think I had space for this." She tilted her head. And now I'm glad I did." Across the room, his friends exchanged uneasy looks. This was not how it was supposed to go. This was not funny. This was something else entirely. The rest of the dinner felt different, lighter, honest. They talked about hopes without making promises, about loss without dwelling on it, about moving forward in small steps. When the check came, he reached for it out of habit. She stopped him gently and offered to split it. He agreed, surprised how natural it felt. Outside, the air was cool. The streetlights reflected off the pavement. They stood there for a moment, unsure how to end the night. "I had a good time," she said. "Me too," he replied. They exchanged a simple goodbye. No pressure, no expectations, just a shared understanding that something meaningful had happened, even if neither of them fully understood it yet. As he walked to his car, his friends approached him, laughter ready on their faces. But it faded when they saw his expression. "Well," one of them asked. He looked at them calmly. "We'll talk later," he said. Driving home, the city lights passed by in a blur. His mind replayed moments from the evening. Her smile, her honesty, the way he felt like himself again, even if only for a short while. He parked outside his house and sat there, hands resting on the steering wheel. The fear was still there, the responsibility, the doubts. But for the first time in a long while, there was something else too, hope, and he did not know what to do with it yet. He did not sleep much that night. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of the house. Every small sound felt louder than usual. The ticking clock, a car passing outside, his own breathing. His mind kept returning to the dinner, replaying moments without asking permission. Her smile when he first walked in, the way she listened without interrupting, the honesty in her voice when she admitted the date was meant as a joke. That part still bothered him, not because of her, but because of how easily he could have been hurt, how easily he might have walked into the restaurant and felt like a fool. He wondered what would have happened if she had not been honest, or worse, if she had played along and laughed about it later. He turned onto his side and sighed. He was not angry, exactly, just thoughtful, careful. He had learned to be careful with his feelings. The next morning came quickly. He got up before the alarm again, made breakfast, and woke his child gently. She talked about school while he packed her bag, her voice full of energy. Watching her reminded him why he guarded his heart so closely after dropping her off. He drove to work as usual, but something felt different. He caught himself smiling at nothing. Then he caught himself and stopped, as if happiness were something he needed to explain. At work, he was distracted. A co-worker asked if he was feeling okay. He nodded and said he was just tired. That was partly true, but there was another reason, one he did not know how to name. Later that afternoon, his phone buzzed. A message. It was from her. "I hope you're having a good day. Just wanted to say I meant what I said last night." He stared at the screen for a long moment before replying. "So did I," he typed, then paused, then added, "Thank you for being honest." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. "I was nervous to tell you," she replied. "I didn't want to ruin the night." "You didn't," he wrote back. "You made it better." He put the phone down and took a deep breath. His hands were slightly shaky. He was surprised by that. It was just a message. Simple words. But they felt heavier than they should. Over the next few days, they talked more. Short messages at first. Checking in. Sharing small parts of their days. He told her about a funny moment at breakfast. She told him about a long walk she took in the evening to clear her mind. They did not rush. Neither of them wanted to. One evening, after his child was asleep, he sat on the couch and let himself think about the future. Not in big pictures, just small ones. A coffee, a walk, another dinner. He felt nervous even imagining it. At the same time, his friends grew uneasy. They noticed he was quieter around them, not withdrawn, just different, more thoughtful, less interested in jokes that once filled the space between them. One of them finally asked him about the date. He hesitated before answering, then told the truth. "It wasn't funny," he said calmly. "It mattered." They exchanged looks, unsure how to respond. The mood shifted. They tried to laugh it off, but it did not work this time. She knew it was a joke, one of them said, trying to soften it. "So no harm done, right?" He shook his head slowly. "That doesn't make it okay." The room went quiet. He explained how hard it had been to even agree to go, how vulnerable it felt to sit across from someone after years of keeping his world small. He told them that turning real emotions into entertainment was not harmless. They listened. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked guilty. "We didn't mean to hurt you," one of them said. "I know," he replied, "but intention doesn't erase impact." That was the first time he had ever said something like that out loud. Meanwhile, his connection with her deepened in quiet ways. They met again a week later, this time by choice. No setup, no tricks, just two people deciding to see each other again. They went for a walk in a nearby park during the afternoon. Open space, fresh air, no pressure. He told her about his friends and how he felt. She listened, just like before. "I'm sorry they put you in that position," she said. "They didn't know better," he replied. "But I do now." They sat on a bench, watching people pass by. Parents with strollers, couples holding hands, elderly pairs walking slowly, side by side. "I used to think love had a timeline," she said quietly, "that if it didn't happen by a certain point, it was over." He nodded. "I used to think love was something you lost once and never got back." They looked at each other, sharing a moment that needed no explanation. As days turned into weeks, he found himself opening up in ways he had not planned. He told her about the guilt he sometimes felt when he laughed, as if joy meant forgetting. He told her about nights when the house felt too empty. She did not try to fix him. She did not offer quick answers. She simply stayed present. That mattered more than she knew. One evening, while cooking dinner, his child asked him why he was humming. He froze for a second. "I don't know," he said honestly. She smiled. "You should hum more." Later that night, after she was asleep, he realized something important. His child had noticed a change before anyone else. Children always did. He was not healed. He was not suddenly fearless. But he was no longer closed. The past still existed. The pain still lived inside him. But it no longer controlled every decision. He understood now that being careful did not mean being closed forever, that protecting his heart did not require locking it away completely. The joke that was meant to embarrass him had done something else instead. It had forced him to face parts of himself he had avoided, his loneliness, his hope, his fear of wanting again. And as uncomfortable as that realization was, it also felt freeing. He did not know where this connection would lead. He did not need to know yet. For the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to take things one day at a time. And that, he realized, was more than enough for now. The tension with his friends did not disappear after that conversation. It lingered in small ways. Pauses that lasted too long. Jokes that fell flat. Messages that went unanswered longer than usual. He noticed it, even if no one said anything directly. A week later, they invited him over again. Same place, same time. The message sounded normal, but he sensed something underneath it, a feeling that this meeting would be different. He almost declined, not because he was afraid, but because he was tired of pretending nothing had changed. Still, these were people who had been part of his life for years. People who had helped him when everything first fell apart. Walking away without speaking honestly felt wrong. So he went. The room felt smaller than usual. Everyone was there, sitting in familiar spots, but the energy was off. Someone handed him a drink. He accepted it, but did not sip right away. They talked about surface things at first. Work, traffic, someone's new car. The conversation moved, but it had no heart in it. Everyone was waiting. Finally, one of them cleared his throat. "So," he said, trying to sound casual, "how's everything going?" He knew what the question really meant. "It's going," he replied, "but we need to talk." The room went quiet. He set the drink down untouched and leaned forward slightly. His hands rested on his knees. He did not raise his voice. He did not accuse. He spoke slowly, choosing each word carefully. "I need you to understand something," he said. "What happened with that date? It wasn't just a night out for me." No one interrupted. "I spent years building my life around one responsibility," he continued. "I didn't complain. I didn't ask for sympathy. I just did what needed to be done. Saying yes to that dinner took more courage than you realize." One of them shifted uncomfortably. Another looked down at the floor. "We thought it would help," someone said quietly. "We thought if we made it light, it wouldn't be so serious." "That's the problem," he replied. "It was serious to me." The words hung in the air. He explained how exposed he felt walking into that restaurant, how easily the night could have ended in humiliation, how knowing it was meant as a joke made him question whether his feelings were something people took seriously. "I'm not angry," he said, "but I need respect. If I'm going to open my life again, it can't be treated like entertainment." Silence followed. Then one of them spoke, voice low. "We messed up." Another nodded. "We didn't think it through." An apology came. Then another, not rushed, not defensive, real. He listened. He accepted them. But forgiveness did not erase everything instantly. Trust took time. They all knew that. That night ended differently than usual. No loud laughter. No late hours. Just honest conversation and a shared understanding that something important had shifted. When he got home, the house was quiet. He checked on his child, adjusted the blanket gently, and stood there for a moment longer than necessary. He felt grounded again. The next day, she called him. Hearing her voice instead of reading words made his chest tighten in a good way. "I didn't know if calling was okay," she said. "It is," he replied. "I'm glad you did." They talked for a long time, about the awkwardness with his friends, about her own hesitation to trust situations that started off wrong, about how strange it was that something meant to be careless had turned into something thoughtful. "I want you to know," she said carefully, "I never felt like you were part of a joke." He believed her. That weekend they met again. This time, she came to his neighborhood. Nothing formal, just a walk, then coffee. He felt more relaxed with her nearby, like he did not have to explain himself constantly. At one point, she asked about his child again, not in a curious way, but in a careful one. "I don't want to rush anything," she said. "I just want to understand what your life looks like." He appreciated that. He told her about routines, about school mornings and tired evenings, about how his life was full, even when it felt lonely. He told her that his child would always come first. "I wouldn't expect anything else," she said. That response stayed with him. A few days later, something unexpected happened. His child's school called in the middle of the day. A small accident on the playground. Nothing serious, but enough to send his heart racing. He left work immediately and rushed over. By the time he arrived, everything was fine. A scraped knee, a brave smile, but the fear lingered. That night, after his child was asleep, he felt the weight of it all crash down. The responsibility, the constant worry, the thought of doing this alone forever. Without thinking too much, he sent her a message. "Today scared me more than it should have." She replied almost instantly, "Do you want to talk?" They talked about fear, about how loving someone made you vulnerable, about how strength was often just showing up again and again, even when you were exhausted. "I see how hard you try," she said, "even when no one is watching." That sentence broke something open inside him. A few weeks later, he took a step he had not planned yet. He invited her to meet his child. Not at home, not in a serious way, just an afternoon at the park. Open space. No pressure. He was nervous, more nervous than their first dinner. She arrived early, brought nothing but herself. No gifts, no forced smiles. She greeted his child politely at eye level and followed his lead completely. They played, they laughed, they shared snacks. Nothing felt forced. His child warmed up quickly, asked questions, told stories, ran ahead, then came back to check if they were watching. At one point, she leaned toward him and whispered, "You're doing an amazing job." He swallowed hard. On the way home, his child held his hand and said, "She's nice." He smiled. "I think so too." That night, after bedtime, he sat alone and let himself feel something he had avoided for a long time. Peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because it felt honest. The joke had lost its power. The embarrassment had faded. What remained was clarity. He knew now that he deserved respect, that his life, his choices, his heart were not things to play with. And he knew that opening himself up again did not mean risking everything at once. It meant choosing carefully. As he turned off the lights and headed to bed, he felt tired in a good way. The kind of tired that comes from emotional truth, not exhaustion. He did not know exactly what the future held, but for the first time since everything had changed, he felt ready to find out. Life did not suddenly become perfect after that afternoon at the park. There were no dramatic speeches, no instant promises, no big announcements. What changed was quieter than that. It was in the small things, the steady things. He noticed he was no longer afraid of planning something a week ahead. Before, his world had been limited to work and home, moving carefully from one responsibility to the next. Now, sometimes there was a coffee plan on Thursday, a walk on Sunday. Simple plans, but they made his days feel less heavy. His friends also changed. They stopped teasing him about finally getting back out there. They stopped turning serious things into jokes. Instead, one of them offered to babysit without being asked. Another checked in, not to gossip, but to ask how he was really doing. One evening, they all met again. The same living room, the same chairs. But the atmosphere felt different, softer. "I owe you again," one of them said, looking directly at him. "We were wrong. We thought we were helping, but we didn't respect what you were carrying." He nodded. "I know you didn't mean harm." "That doesn't make it harmless," the friend replied quietly. That moment mattered more than they realized. It showed growth. It showed that the joke had taught all of them something. Over time, his relationship with her grew in a natural rhythm. They did not rush to label it. They did not push each other into big decisions. They built it slowly, like stacking bricks one by one. She understood his boundaries. She never asked for more time than he could give. She never made him choose between her and his child. In fact, she encouraged him to put his child first. Always. That told him everything he needed to know. There were nights when he still felt guilt. Moments when he caught himself smiling at a message from her and felt a strange tightness in his chest, as if happiness required permission. One night, he admitted that to her. "I feel like I'm betraying the past when I'm happy," he said softly as they sat on a quiet bench after dinner. She did not rush to answer. She looked at him for a long moment. "Love isn't replaced," she said gently. "It changes shape. It grows in new directions. It doesn't erase what came before." He let those words sink in. For years, he had believed moving forward meant leaving something behind. But now he began to understand that he could carry his memories and still make room for something new. At home, his child continued to notice things in her simple way. "You laugh more now," she told him one evening while they washed dishes together. "Do I?" he asked. She nodded. "It's nice." He realized then that healing was not just about him. It affected the whole house. The energy in the rooms, the tone in his voice, the way mornings felt less rushed and evenings less silent. A few months after that first dinner, they decided to have a proper family outing together. Nothing big, just a small trip to a nearby fair that came to town once a year. The lights were bright. The air smelled like popcorn and sugar. Music played from old speakers. His child ran ahead, pointing at rides and games. He walked beside her, and she walked on the other side, keeping pace with them both. There was no awkwardness, no pressure, just three people sharing space. At one point, his child grabbed both their hands at once and pulled them toward a game booth. That simple gesture hit him harder than any emotional speech ever could. He looked down at their joined hands and felt something settle inside him. Peace again. Later that night, after his child fell asleep in the car ride home, he carried her inside carefully. She stirred slightly but did not wake. He tucked her into bed and stood there for a moment, watching her breathe. When he stepped outside to say goodnight to her, he felt a quiet certainty. "This started as a joke," he said softly. She smiled. "I know, and it almost stopped me from coming. But you came anyway." He nodded. "I'm glad you did," she added. He looked at her, thinking about everything that had happened since that first nervous step into the restaurant. The fear, the embarrassment, the confrontation with his friends, the slow rebuilding of trust, the quiet walks, the honest conversations. It had not been dramatic. It had not been flashy, but it had been real. "I think," he said carefully, "that sometimes life pushes you in strange ways. Even the wrong reasons can lead you somewhere right." She laughed softly. "That sounds like something you've been thinking about for a while." "I have." As weeks turned into months, the relationship became part of his routine in a gentle way. She joined them for dinner sometimes, helped with homework once in a while, sat on the couch during movie nights. She never tried to take over. She simply fit. His friends saw the change too. They saw the way he carried himself differently, the way his shoulders seemed lighter. They no longer joked about dating. Instead, they respected the space he had fought to protect. One evening, while sitting alone after everyone had gone home, he thought back to the man he was before that joke date. He remembered sitting in his car, debating whether to walk into the restaurant. He remembered the fear of looking foolish, the fear of wanting something again. What shocked him the most was not that he had met someone kind. It was that he had been brave enough to show up. He had spent years believing strength meant enduring everything alone. But he had learned something new. Strength could also mean allowing someone to stand beside you. The joke that was meant to embarrass him ended up revealing something deeper. It showed him how much he still had inside him, how much love he was still capable of giving, how much life was still waiting beyond his fear. He did not know what the next 5 years would look like. He did not try to predict it anymore. What mattered was that he no longer felt stuck in the past. One quiet evening, as he tucked his child into bed, she looked up at him and said, "Are we happy?" He paused, surprised by the question. "Yes," he said honestly. "I think we are." She smiled and closed her eyes. After turning off the light, he stood in the hallway for a moment. The house felt warm, not just quiet, but full. He walked to the living room, where she sat waiting, reading a book. She looked up when he entered, and he smiled without hesitation. This time, there was no guilt attached to it. What started as a setup meant to make him the center of a harmless joke had become the turning point of his life. It forced him to face his fear of moving forward. It showed his friends the weight he carried. It brought someone into his world who respected that weight instead of mocking it. And in the end, the biggest surprise was not what happened on that first night. It was who he became because of it. He was still a single dad, still responsible, still careful, but no longer closed. And that changed everything.